Hello and welcome on board this live safari. My name is Scott and I'm teamed up with Tebs on camera. We are heading into an area in the hope of finding a female leopard. There are some tracks heading in the general direction we're moving in, and Steph, who's one of our crew members, was on his way back from a meeting at Arathusa and heard a lot of squirrels alarm calling in this little drainage line that we're about to drive parallel along and see if we can't find any sign of who is in all likelihood Karula. Now it's quite warm, it's about 30 degrees Celsius, which is around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it may mean that the leopard may be taking a little breather, although the clouds are protecting us from the sun at the moment, so anything is possible. You guys are in for a treat. You're going to be taken on a bushwalk with Jamie as well as being on the vehicle with myself, and I'm sure that may be a lot of your first time bushwalks or possibly just your first time with Jamie, so a lot to look forward to there. And I've actually never seen Jamie on a bushwalk, so I'm quite jealous that you're going to be going with her, and I'm sure you'll get an update in not too long from her and what her plans are. I'm thinking that she is going to be walking in this general area. We're not too far from camp, and it's always useful to follow up on animals like leopard on foot when you have the ability to move off-road and take you along for the journey. Obviously it would be a little bit difficult for me to jump off now and take you along. So apologies for my hasty message as I passed the Djuma waterhole. Curious one has asked, what did I say when I went past there quickly, and as well as Angela Pinto, and I said that there was a yellow-billed oxpecker on the buffalo on the opposite side of the waterhole. That's what I saw on my way past there. It's not very common to see the yellow-billed oxpeckers. Their cousins, the red-billed oxpeckers, are far more common in this area. And for any of you who may be joining this live safari for the first time, you must be wondering, how did Angela and Curious One get a hold of us? It's very easy. You can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. We would love to hear from you, not only questions, but also comments, observations. Mumbai has just sent through a question, and you've probably noticed all these clouds already and are wondering whether or not they may bring any chance of rain, and I'm not convinced that this will bring any rain. It's not looking like it at the moment. Tebs, maybe you can just show them a quick pan of the sky here. Not looking too gloomy. So those are my predictions. Mumbai, I don't really watch the news too much or the weather. I just wait to see what's going on. I take the weather as it comes. So I haven't heard of any forecast, but I'm, I guess, the wrong person to be asking for that. But my gut feel is that there will not be any rain this afternoon, which is no good for this area because we are in a drought. But it is good for our safari because it means it can continue uninterrupted. Come on, Karula. What I'm probably going to do is just jump out the vehicle once we get down into this riverbed area where she may have crossed, and just spend some time on foot quickly just to establish if she did actually move here, or if those squirrels that Steph heard were alarm calling at something else. There is a strong likelihood that they could have been alarming at a bird of prey or a snake. Not necessarily the leopard we're hoping to find, but it's definitely a good clue to go off, and it's going to be worth just spending a little bit of time moving through this area on foot. I'll not be far from the vehicle. And if we do find the tracks, then we can get a hold of Jamie and get her into this area as soon as possible, because a team on foot is going to be far more effective than we are in the vehicle when it comes down to trying to track down a leopard. And this road is called Ingwe Alley, for those of you who are wondering. And there's a small little riverbed that runs parallel to us here. The borehole that pumps water to the camp is also just up ahead, so that may be a familiar landmark for some of you. Well, while I jump off and check for any tracks here, we're going to send you across to Jamie for an update on her plans for this afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sunset Safari. And what a glorious afternoon it is looking to be. Perfect afternoon for a little bit of a stroll through the bush. As you can see, the clouds are starting to build, and it's not too hot, which is nice for the cameraman Shazviam this afternoon. Means that he doesn't get too boiling carrying the big pack that he's carrying with a big antenna. Hello, impalas. A couple of them watching us walk across quarantine. So we're on our way, as Scott updated you. We're on our way to try and follow up on any sign of Karula. Brent found her tracks this morning. And Steph said that he'd heard lots of alarm calls around the drainage line around Philemon's Dip. So we're going to go see if we can pick up on any tracks that are around there. Might do a bit of a trip around the western edge of quarantine, try and see if she's popped out of the drainage line there. The impalas know that we're here, and they, as usual, you get to see a different reaction with the various animals when you're out on foot. As soon as they see that bipedal human form, they immediately become a little bit more nervous than they might be with a vehicle around, which means that this is pretty much as close as we're going to get to the youngsters. It's all the lambs standing there watching us, keeping a very close eye on whatever Viam and myself are doing, wondering why on earth Viam is carrying a large white antenna sticking up over his head, I imagine. Might be a bit of an unusual sight for that particular impala herd, although I'm sure they're getting used to our curious antics. I'm going to give them plenty of space as we walk around. They can see us. I'm not trying to keep my voice down too much because they know that we're here. I don't want to scare them either, so we're just going to do a loop around them. But all the youngsters really keeping a very close eye on us. Hello, guys. All the little ears watching us. Oh, and they're off. Adults are a bit more relaxed than the youngsters. The youngsters still learning about what it is that is dangerous out here and what isn't. And maybe if Karula did walk past here, this impala herd would have seen her. I didn't hear any alarm calls. We live just off to the left of where we're walking now. I didn't hear any impala alarm calls, but you never know. Karula is a mysterious leopard and she moves in mysterious ways. And if she walked through the drainage line, they may well not have spotted her. I'm looking to see if they're looking in any other directions. They might be glancing back if they had spotted her, but it doesn't look like it. They look fairly relaxed and more just aware of us walking past them. Now, being out on foot is one of the best ways to really get to experience all kinds of the little things that the bush has to offer. The tiny insects, the fascinating tracks, and it's one of my favorite ways to actually immerse myself in the bush experience. You find yourself, it's not quite like being on a vehicle. You get to feel and smell and hear all kinds of different things that might otherwise be masked by an engine. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go and look down in the dip, see if we can spot any tracks. And in the meantime, let's pop back over to Scott. We'll catch up with you shortly.
So, sadly, no joy finding any tracks where I jumped out there. That's not to say that you didn't move through that area. The ground's quite hard. We had a small amount of rain couple of days back, and what happens is the ground solidifies until animals walk on it again, or if we drive along the road and churn up the solidified soil until it becomes soft again. And obviously soft soil is far better for animals to leave a track behind in. So not the easiest conditions in that little area, but we will keep searching. We're not far away. I've just got back into the vehicle and continued on now. There was just a little hyena track there that got me confused. So we'll keep checking around here. Like I said, maybe it wasn't that the leopard moved there and just speculation thereof. It's funny how wishful thinking and the power of your mind can sway and convert any kind of, not random events, but if you're tracking a leopard and you hear a squirrel alarm calling nearby, you immediately think that's the leopard around the corner, but 9 times out of 10 it's not. Now, according to Brent, who found these leopard tracks this morning, they headed towards the camp between this road, to the right of this road, and another road, but it's a massive kind of 270-degree opening from the corner where the tracks went off the road into a massive block. So she could be anywhere in a very large area with not many roads cutting through. She really does love spending time in this little riverbed. Jamie's just on the other side of us in that direction. The quarantine clearings are over there to our right. So we've hopefully got the leopard sandwich, but it's just a matter of trying to track it down now. Now there's been, at least from my side, a lot of chat about trying to find this leopard, and it's not the only thing we're interested in, but it is very important to focus on the animals that are harder to find and invest time in looking for them. Otherwise we won't get to see them. Animals like elephants and buffalo and the general game, we'll bump into them at random, and obviously while we're looking for a leopard, we're not going to overlook any of the other animals that we see, but they don't require nearly as much focus to find them, at least not at the moment. My earpiece is causing trouble. I'm not too sure what it could be. Next, if you can just carry on talking. Yeah. Okay, well, it seems to be working now. There must just be a bit of a faulty connection somewhere in the cable. To Donna and ex-Ranga, who would like to know what happened with the bushbuck in the shower last night. And basically what happened was, we've got an outdoor shower at our little house, and it's got a wooden kind of pole fence around it, which is circular in shape, and there's a small little wooden door which we never close, and we've planted a few vines and different succulents, different plants within and around the shower. And I walked in there last night at about 8:30 or 9:30, and I was just using my cell phone torch, and this creature jumped out from behind the actual shower, and I got the fright of my life. I thought it was a leopard, but it turned out to be a male bushbuck, which is actually not much better, because male bushbucks can be quite violent actually, and especially when they cornered in this very tiny little area. I thought it could have possibly decided to charge me or just run into me through default. I mean, I may have possibly been blinding it with my little cell phone torch. It may not have been able to see too clearly. Anyway, I stumbled out of the way before any harm was done to any of us, and then actually made a short video. So if any of you would like to see the shower and or the video, you can either check out my Instagram page, Scotty D Safari, or you can check out my Facebook page. I know it's not on my Facebook page yet, but it should be on Twitter somewhere, I think. The video also got shared to Twitter with a link to where you can watch it. So Instagram's probably your best bet for now. I need to upload it onto my Scotty D or Scott Dyson Safari's Facebook page. The internet though is killing us at the moment, so it's good enough to get the picture out for you, but it's a different server for what we use just for our general day-to-day stuff, and that one's not working, which makes uploading things a bit tricky. David Limbu, I wonder how you stumbled across this LiveSafari on YouTube. Anyway, luckily you did, because it's an awesome experience, and we would like to welcome you on board. My name is Scott, if you didn't catch my name a little bit earlier when we started the safari, and we're in South Africa, in the northeastern corner, and as you're obviously aware now, this is a live safari. And we are very blessed to be able to drive around the Sabi Sands Reserve, which is a part of the Kruger National Park. And I just want to try and reposition the vehicle so I can show you some leopard tracks that were found by Brent, one of the other presenters this morning. Okay. David, great to have you with us, and we're busy tracking down a leopard. Don't go anywhere, hopefully it won't take long for us to find it. Let's take a look at the track. It's just down on the road here on the edge of a shadow. I can't see my monitor though. The glare, and it's been washed with something, which is nice, but whatever it was washed with is preventing me from seeing through the screen now. Anyway, there's a leopard track somewhere over there. I can't see anything, but that's the direction it's heading in, straight. I can't see anything, Teb, so it's pointless. Let's just carry on. So somewhere in that direction is where the leopard's going, and we're just going to keep looping around this general area in the hope that we can work out exactly where it is. Seems like somebody's cleaned this little monitor screen, and I see what Tebs is filming with some cooking oil. Something bizarre, because I cannot see a thing with the glare. Now, interestingly, I've tracked her in this same area before, and she veered straight off the road, even though she was heading kind of east, and she actually came up onto this termite mound over here on our right, and then crossed the road. So, I mean, it's really tricky business following these animals, and even though they may assume to have a general direction, we know for a fact that Karula likes to weave when she's on the move. She doesn't just go in one direction for a very long period of time, so she's a tricky customer. Had a brainwave, which I should have had earlier. I'll be able to show you guys this little video on my phone, and then you'll get to see exactly what I'm talking about regarding the bush buck. Steph's just made a funny comment saying it seems like this week the antelope have got it in for the presenters. Some of you may not know about the story of an Inyala being chased by a pack of wild dogs and jumping straight through VM's passenger window onto Brent's lap, who was sitting in the passenger seats of VM's car. Very luckily, none of them got injured. I'm sure the Inyala's got a pounding headache if it didn't end up getting caught by the wild dogs afterwards. And Jen would also like to know how did I actually get the the bushbuck out of the shower, I just kind of slowly spoke to it and asked it to move out. So let's hope the glare isn't too bad for you here.
How's it?
There's a bushbuck in our shower.
Yes, there's a bushbuck in our shower. No. It almost got Scott.
It's a male as well. So I'm not too sure how much of that you could see, but you got an idea, I guess, of what happened last night. Thankfully, Steph, it's you know, I don't think it had it in for me. It was just actually really clever to seek out that little area to sleep in. That's what really scared me initially. Had I have walked in and was standing up feeding, it would have been a lot easier to kind of process, but it was lying down and it just jumped up out of nowhere as if it was lying in wait for me to pounce. And that's why I thought it was a leopard initially. X-Ranger has brought up contentious issue, and that is about Nikki's torch or flashlight that I bought for her, and she never used it until she nearly stood on a Mozambican spinning cobra. Now she carries it everywhere. X-Ranger, the reason why I wasn't carrying my torch is that Nikki broke the buckle for it that usually latches onto my belt, so that's why I was only armed with the cell phone torch. So she started using her torch and broken my equipment that helps me carry mine. So it's crude tactics here on her behalf to make me look bad now. Safari Dean, I'm very happy to hear from you because you're reminding me of a great sighting that was had this morning. And Safari Dean says I was outnumbered by Jamie, and I think we've all been outnumbered or even outsnaked. That was a magical sighting. Maybe the only competition of a better snake sighting was with Brent and Jandre when they had that boomslang on the bushwalk. But it was a fabulous sighting of that mamba this morning. And for those of you who weren't on the safari, I know Cheesy Cheetah's been hoping to find a snake or see a snake, but you weren't watching this morning. So if you're watching now, Cheesy Cheetah, apologies. What can you do? But that was a good one. This was an elephant that linked this log into the road, and possibly more than one. There's quite a few tracks heading down in this direction. You've got to be really careful of those logs that kind of stick out half onto the road and half off, because if your tire hits one corner of those logs, they can get flung into the vehicle. It's like this bizarre thing that happens on safari. I've had my head split open by one, and I've had my guest's camera, brand new camera lens, broken by another. So be ready for random branches flying up and walloping us, because it can happen. And that's why I was just moving that one off the road. That was a prime example of one that could just flick back in. Interesting. These tracks are heading in the general direction of the Djuma waterhole, and I'm told there's a herd of elephants approaching there right now. It's a great pity that Jamie's radio doesn't appear to be working on the bushwalk, so they're going to throw in the towel and go out and jump on Rusty, the other vehicle. So apologies for that letdown, but imagine how demoralized poor old Jamie and Stefan Wiem are after getting all excited to go on their bushwalk. There's obviously a huge amount of intricacies with the technology that goes into getting this live feed to you guys, and obviously we hate it just as much as you do when it's not working, but there's huge complications involved, and it's not a perfect science. That's for certain. Okay, Anne in Texas, there's only one way to answer your question, and that is for me to pull out my little map book. Anne's interested to know, how big are the blocks surrounded by the roads on average? And you'd like to know in acres. So this is going to take me a while to work out, but basically let's start by having a look at, can you guys see? Yeah. So this is Juma on the right, and this is Arethusa on the left. So you can see how they're connected by kind of a section of boundary overlap where we would be able to follow one animal into the white area, but if animals go into any of the green areas surrounding us, we can't follow them. Okay, so those are areas that are not of our Safari Live traverse. Okay, and now if I zoom in, see that the blocks vary greatly in size. I mean, there's the little blue dots is where we are now, on Zoe's Road, approaching the main access road. So I mean, it fluctuates greatly, Susan, the size of the blocks and the shape of the blocks. Some are quite small but quite thick, others are quite big and more open. In terms of acres, I wouldn't even be able to hazard a guess, because as you can see, I mean, there's just too many variables here and too many different size blocks. But what I can tell you is that is 1,200 hectares. So you can take a screenshot if you want, and you're more than welcome to do the maths as to how much you think each block is in acres. Oh. All those place marks are from different sightings that we've had, but I've been a bit slack as to what's what, and it's usually for when I'm tracking animals that I'll keep gives you a good idea. So if I'm tracking an animal through a block, I remember I was tracking a female leopard, and she came off Philemon's cut line where this kind of the crosshairs are, and as I moved through the block, I kept updating where I had her last track, so that if I lost her last track whilst looking ahead, I could always go back to the last position and then continue. And then we got all the way down here, and then I'm not sure if she veered up here or what happened. I think that was the case. But that's an example of how I used the little pins to follow while I was tracking. Good. So we're not too far from the Juma waterhole, and we're gonna head across there. I'm told there's a little baby there. And for people like David who are new to the safari, it's important that you know that we also do have a live waterhole camera that runs 24 hours a day, and it's controlled by people called zoomies who are all around the world, and they control the camera and have ability to choose where it aims and where it zooms in, and they have different shifts that they'll operate that camera on. Hugely useful for us. We wake up in the morning and often have wonderful updates as to what was there last night, which direction the leopard headed in. Just a few days ago, we got some great intelligence from that Juma waterhole cam, which helped us find a big male leopard called Tingana. Hopefully it won't be too long before he comes back for a visit. I don't know what he eats or why he doesn't eat anything on Juma, but I don't think we've seen him with one kill on Juma. Or at least I haven't in over a year of being here. Such a wonderful comment has come through from Donna Miller, who's in Jackson. And she says, is she the only one that's starting to look more closely at nature, that's right on her doorstep, in and around her garden? And that's a hugely uplifting comment to hear, Donna, because it's so true. There's so much wildlife across the globe, not just in Africa. That's really awesome to look at, and it's, I guess, the same little wildlife and animals that intrigued me in my garden when I was growing up. Whether it's little shrews or moles or birds coming to your bird feeders, there's a lot of wonderful wildlife wherever we go on the planet, varying degrees, of course. And I guess, Donna, a big lesson that I try and teach people is that beauty should not necessarily be something that is big and that jumps out at you, but the smaller things that might need a little bit of effort to find and look at. Kind of like the blue waxbills is a good example. So easy to drive past them. These are the helmeted guinea fowls, though, with their bright blue heads. But I'm being shouted at by Nikki, getting told that the elephants are playing and the guinea fowl are going to take the back seat. Sorry, guinea fowl, you have been upstaged by some elephants that are playing at the waterhole, but come down and join us. There's a baby putting on a serious performance here, so I'm trying to rush on in, but we will slow down as we approach because we don't want to disturb the elephants or make them feel uneasy. Also a few Cape buffalo lurking on the fringes here. Just flicked some water at the buffalo. Hello. And he's a young boy and behaving just as young boys so often do, being a little bit of a bully. And I saw a remarkable picture of an elephant that had actually impaled a Cape buffalo with its two tusks and was holding it high up in the air. I only saw one picture though, so not sure of the before and after, but that buffalo I doubt would have survived. Anyway, that's not common for that to happen, although in times of desperation like this, in times of droughts, you can get these strange things happening where animals that will usually be a lot more relaxed with one another become quite uptight and aggressive, fighting over this precious commodity. I'm just going to reposition ever so slightly so we can see what the rest of the herd are up to now that the situation is diffused. Now you may notice he's sucking on a little pipe there. That's the inlet pipe. This waterhole is pumped. Awesome. Well, now we can see all of them. I'm just going to ask Tev just to quickly zoom in on the family there, because there's that cute little calf standing next to her mother, and that little youngster was the one that was apparently snorkeling in the waterhole just before we got here. And I'm told the Zoomy cam's taking a quick look at us here. Hello, whoever the Zoomy may be today. He must have enjoyed that little elephant baby snorkeling. call it to Shelley for noticing that. The mother of that young calf has got a very short trunk and must have been caught in a poacher's snare, in all likelihood, a wire noose that is set along animal paths, and anything that puts its trunk or a limb through it will get snagged, and it's a terrible, terrible tool. The noise you can hear is this elephant bull sucking on the water pipe. They are surprisingly fussy animals, and it would prefer to suck the fresher water out of that pipe as opposed to drink the water that's been contaminated by the muddy water. So that's what it's doing, and elephants will often cause huge trouble with any water going to and from camps as they rip up the piping. At a camp I worked at in Kenya, there was somebody employed full-time simply to walk the water line every single day and repair the damages to it. Every single day. On YouTube, I'm told you're tired of seeing, I think, the ducks pooping in the water hole. The buffalo. And yeah, many an animal does relieve itself at the water's edge, which is, I guess, not ideal for the next customers who may be arriving. To Wayne in Philadelphia, and you'd like to know a little bit more about buffalo and the buffalo that we get here in Djuma, because you've heard that there's both the forest buffalo and the Cape buffalo. Now, that is very true. We only get the Cape buffalo here in southern Africa, and throughout most parts of Africa, the Cape buffalo is the most common. The forest buffalo you only get into Central and Western Africa, and I just pulled out a book to show you a distribution map of where exactly you can expect to find the the forest buffalo, and that's equatorial Africa, that area there which is marked by the pink, okay? All of the green is the Cape buffalo, and this distribution map isn't entirely true because it should be throughout the whole of South Africa, which is right at the bottom here where we are. So not very up to date, this book, or accurate, but the whole of South Africa will have Cape buffalo. And here I can show you a picture of at least a forest buffalo. They've got big kind of shaggy ears and are very reddish in coloration. This is a female though, it's not a male, and I'm sure a male will have a similar boss to the Cape buffalo. So very different in appearance. The forest buffalo, it says here, are considerably smaller. I'm not sure how much smaller. Okay, considerably smaller. A male forest buffalo will weigh only about 320 kilograms, whereas a Cape buffalo will weigh twice as much as that. So there we go. Good that you asked that question to clear that up. I'm told, I think the water buffaloes of India are the largest of them all. I think it goes the water buffalo, the bison, then the Cape buffalo, or possibly bison, water buffalo, then Cape buffalo. Thankfully the Ellies are still just here and very slowly feeding. I'm looking forward to spending some time watching this little calf. I think we're going to get some entertaining moments from it because it is very, very small. I just don't want to put too much pressure on the young bull who's lagging at the back here as they often do. Don't want to get him too worked up because he in turn may get the rest of the herd worked up. Dream, you're right, this little baby elephant is incredibly cute and looking forward to getting some good views of it. Let's just make sure we don't disturb its mother. Oh, look at it getting worked up here. Let's see what happens. Look at the way it hardly knows how to work its trunk. It's certainly getting excited though, and oh, be careful. And they're tough, these little animals. They get booted around quite often, but I guess that's part of growing up out in the wild. Yeah, you need to roll with the punches. Now what I want to try and do is just surge ahead and then park in front of them. Maximilian on YouTube. This certainly is live, and it is remarkable how even in Africa we've got internet capable of getting these pictures to you hot off the press. To be honest, it's not like this through most of Africa, and generally the internet that we use is pretty hopeless, to be honest. So we have got very special internet to cater specifically for these needs that I'm sure we're paying exorbitantly for. But yeah, our internet isn't nearly as good as most first world countries, as is most of our infrastructure. Having said that though, Maximilian, South Africa is far better developed than most other South African countries, Southern African countries. So we are a little bit ahead of most of our neighbors. And it's great to have you with us. You see now, by looping ahead of them like this, hopefully they're going to come close to us without being too concerned. Now, I've been waiting for somebody to ask this question, so well done to Fee, because we've noticed one elephant cow who was spending time with two of her offspring, now possibly a third, and it could very, very well be the same half trunk that we've been seeing for very long periods of time. And the reason why I think it could be her is because there's just three of them. This young bull that's following may have just kind of left his herd and maybe wanting a little bit of company. But it's uncommon for elephants to move like this and just their own private family. Usually they've got extended families with many other individuals involved in them. Other big cows and all of their young, but for some reason this female, who's obviously very distinctive with her half trunk, may just like a smaller family. And I really do feel strongly that this could be a very newly born calf. I mean, I can't remember when last we saw her exactly. Some of you may be able to work that out, and that would be greatly appreciated if any of you do remember that offhand. But this could very well be a new addition. Judging by the way it can move, I'm thinking it's probably a month old at least. Maybe I'm wrong, and I've never monitored an elephant growing up since birth, so difficult to forecast how quickly it actually happens. It's a pity I forgot to turn on the virtual reality rig for this whole operation, which is the funny little camera that's sticking up the front left of the bull bar. Over there. That films 360 degrees, and as these elephants walk past, it would have been a great sequence. hello to Rita, who's watching in Johannesburg, as well as Christine. Oh, take a look at the calf. It's trying to suckle. Honestly, Mom's not interested in feeding it now, judging by the actions, and the calf kind of shook its head there in disgust. Sorry, Rita in Johannesburg and Christine. You guys are both interested to know where Peter, the hippo, could be. I don't have a clue, nor do I know where Peter the second is. There were two Peters. Just the other day I saw two hippos in the vicinity of the pond. One was in the pond, one was just beyond it. So there were two. This bull's decided to have a quick toilet break. And they go to the toilets about every 40 minutes, elephants, and usually drop off about 3 or 4 of those big bran muffins that you can see on the ground there. That's the usual kind of deposit. And like I say, every 30 to 40 minutes, because they feed on so much, they need to make space for fresh produce as they go along. Wonderful, wasn't that great? We had the whole herd slowly streaming past us. Some great views of that tiny little calf. I really do think that this is the same elephant, half trunk. I'm told Donna agrees, and you say that it is in fact short trunk. I'm always very cautious of saying outright that anything is guaranteed out here unless I am, of course, 100% certain, which I'm not, because you can often be fooled, just like the case with the hippo, like we've just been talking about. And it's easy to just assume, it's the same hippo, but then all of a sudden a second hippo pops up onto the scene and you could have been looking at two different hippos the whole time. Or you could get yourself into a dangerous situation, assuming that if the hippo's in the pond, it's not going to be out the pond, and therefore you'd be in big trouble if you bumped into the second hippo not expecting it. Good question through from Cat and Tampa, and you've noticed that it looks like the ears, baby elephant's ears are pinned back. And I didn't actually notice that. Now that you say that, I mean, I do recall most baby elephants having that kind of pinned back appearance, but there's no reason that I am certain of for that. Possibly just the fact that it's been squashed against their head for 22 months in their mother's womb. That could be one reason why, and it takes a little bit of time before they start flapping out more freely. Or maybe it's just those muscles that haven't developed just yet for fanning out the ears. But you're right, they do tend to stay closely pinned back. But every now and then they flap out. There we go, you can even see now it's flapping out a little bit. Joseph in Georgia, I'm not too sure exactly what they're eating. Small shrubs though that are growing up, so small little plants that would have germinated just this season. I can't tell exactly what they are, and you'll probably find it's assortments of different plants. They tend to have quite a varied diet, and I'm not too sure exactly what those are. It appears to be tasty, whatever it is. That could actually be a small, it looks like it could be string of stars. That's what's predominantly growing in this area, and the string of stars have got small flowers, not really at the moment, but there's small white flowers on some of them, you may see. There's some just here on the side of the vehicle that I can get out quickly. So that is a string of stars flower right here. And you can see a few of the little white flowers there. Usually this is a lot larger, but during the droughts, I guess the plants aren't doing too well. Thanks, Tibbs. Okay, well, we're going to send you across to Jamie now, who's now off foot and on vehicle. Toodle-doo.
Yep, and Liam and myself are back on Rusty once again. Unfortunately, the backpack just experiencing one or two minor difficulties. But you never know, our chances are just as good on the back of Rusty of finding Karula as they were on foot. We'll be keeping an eye out. The last tracks moved into this block here on my right. I'm just trying to double check and make sure that she hasn't popped out somewhere along this road. Impala all looking off to the right, but they're looking at other Impala. Hello, boys. Looking good. Whole bachelor herd of nice, impressive Impala males. Also a herd that we see fairly regularly on this road. When I first stopped, they were all looking not at me coming in, but off to the right, but they're actually just looking at other Impala. So, no sign of any leopard life here. Let's go and investigate a bit further on. Difficult to say with leopards as to whether or not they're going to spend the day resting or if they're going to spend the day moving. A lot of my leopard sightings have been in the middle of the day. This morning has been one of the most interesting and unusual drives that I've experienced. Obviously, with that first sighting of that black mamba was quite incredible. And then we came upon the battalier feeding on a nyala carcass. When we went to investigate this nyala carcass, it was clear that it hadn't been killed by a predator. It had been sitting rotting for at least a day in the sun. It was starting to get puffy. You could see where the maggots were starting to form. And I mentioned that I didn't actually want to go and investigate, but Astrolina, you were wondering if I had any feedback from our CSI cold case, or whatever we want to call it. And the reason that as I spoke to viewers then, was the reason I didn't go right up to the carcass was because, although it is highly unlikely, at this time of year, with the drought being as it is, and as it gets worse, it will get more and more likely. But there are recorded cases, and there is a recorded increase of cases of anthrax coming out. Now, anthrax is a type of bacteria that is capable of forming spores that live in the soil, and they can live for decades, if not centuries, before becoming exposed or before the animals are exposed to them. And usually through grazing and picking up the spores and the particles, as soon as they invade that animal, the spores then become active and infected, and either infects the animal in the respiratory system or in rare cases within their digestive system, the gastrointestinal tract. And it's actually a very, very powerful disease. It's a naturally occurring endemic disease. So Astrolina, I don't have any more updates for you, except that I did report it, just because it was, to me, an unusual situation. Whether or not it was anthrax, the chances are actually fairly slim. It could well have been that something happened. Maybe she was bitten by a snake, maybe she died in labor. We just don't know, and I don't think we will ever know the answer, but it has been reported to the relevant authorities, and they will be following up just to double check, see if they can see any signs of it. But obviously without gloves and without really wanting to expose myself to it. And anthrax is it is essentially a bacteria that has evolved as a predator. It has a wonderful way of surviving within the soil particles itself. It does usually affect grazers first of all, but nyala, as browsers, nyala can still eat grass. There's no, especially with the little perennial plants like the string of stars that Scott was showing you, they could well lean down and nibble on it and become infected that way. I don't know. It's difficult to tell. I am not an expert in any way at identifying these diseases, so I just wanted to leave it alone. And we'll just see what they decide or what they report. If I find out anything further, I promise you that I will let you know. But worthwhile just investigating so that the predators or the scavengers can be kept away from it. Now, a scavenger that would come along and eat that carcass would be unlikely to be infected. These animals have quite a resilience in that respect. And because it has started to decompose, what that means for the anthrax bacteria itself, essentially once an organism starts to decompose, the anthrax bacteria that killed it are outcompeted by the decomposition bacteria. So it means that most of the anthrax within rotting carcasses actually decompose away, but some of them may still have formed spores, so it means that the chances of anything being infected from scavenging is reduced, but still a possibility. It's unlikely, but possible. I just want to make sure that we double check it. We've got some buffalo bulls wandering through the block. And Steph, yes, we do get these outbreaks. And Steph's mentioned that anthrax seriously decimated the population of the roan antelope within Kruger. An antelope that we could see here, although it's fairly unlikely. It would be wonderful. One of the endangered antelope that's been making a comeback. And yes, as an endemic disease, it does decimate certain species over others. It's quite common to find elephants that have been killed by anthrax as well. Let me go forward so we can have a slightly better view of the other buffalo bull while I chat about it. And of course, much like as we look at these buffalo, when I said it was a better view, I may have been misleading myself. Hopefully the other boy is going to come out and to get his head out. The reason I want to stay here is just to chat about, because anthrax is like tuberculosis, which, for example, these buffalo may well be carrying themselves. It's a naturally occurring disease, and it also has a way of picking through the weakest members of each species and at times increasing or benefiting the overall genetics by picking off the weakest and leaving the strongest to then procreate. And while I was in between drives, I actually read a really interesting article about the way that grasses grow around the carcasses of animals killed by anthraxes, and actually appears to be a link that makes the grass more attractive in those areas where the anthrax spores have a great chance of being able to reproduce. It's totally incredible. I mean, that level of development for a bacterium is amazing. I just want to hop onto the Game Drive channel. You guys can all join me as we have a quick conversation with Scott. Let's find out what he's up to. This is Scott. It's also a really good way of coordinating our search efforts.
Hello, Jamie. Just wondering what your plans are.
There you go. Scott, I'm just checking around Zoe's Road and Finn's Road. I haven't seen any tracks coming out. I've seen where the tracks go in, so I'm just going to do another loop around the area.
Okay, copy that. Good luck. I have also just checked those two roads. Same story as you.
You never know. There's always a chance that she might pop out.
Off Mamba Road, otherwise I'm keen to.
That's a negative, Scott. You're more than welcome to make your way there.
Copy that. Whereabouts was it?
Just giving Scott directions to the Nyala carcass that we've been chatting about. It was on Mamba Road. As you come out of the Bulwati up sort of onto that first crest, you'll see my off-roading tracks to the left.
Very good. Thank you. Hyena dinner. Active on Nyala. Well, hyena.
copy that. Scott's just letting me know he's gone to pop his nose in at the hyena den, and that it was active, but active with an Inyala wandering around. No sign of any hyena at the den site just yet. So a little bit early for them to be out and about. We've noticed generally, especially since it's quite a hot afternoon, that there's a good chance that the adults will be off sleeping in the shade in drainage lines somewhere, and the cubs will be spending their day snoozing in the den site itself. Off with our discussion, I know that Scotty's going to be making his way towards that Nyala carcass, maybe to see what other birds have made their way into the area, or whether or not a scavenger has. Wayne, you were wondering if it's a bacteria or a fungus. It is a bacteria. It is actually quite a fierce predatory bacteria that uses, once the spores become active within exposure to an organism, it really allows the bacteria to then reproduce, particularly in the lymph systems of mammal species. And Pamela, yes, human beings can get it. Obviously, the chances of infection, it doesn't really come so much from exposure without contact with that particular animal, so you don't really get it from inhalation, although there's that possibility. Is highly, highly unlikely. Most often human cases, recorded cases, are usually in third world countries without vaccination or proper healthcare systems, and it's usually from eating infected meat. So cattle that have died from, for example, exposure to anthrax and then being eaten out of ignorance is usually the way in which anthrax spreads across to humans. It can be spread, but it's quite an unusual situation, except in third world areas or slightly poorer areas. But yes, I can see sort of why you might wonder, Wayne, whether it's a bacteria or a fungus, because I keep mentioning spores. And in that respect, anthrax is quite unusual for a bacteria. Obviously, we always think of yeast or fungus of another species releasing spores as reproductive members. But for the bacterium of anthrax, essentially what they're doing is creating spores that can remain dormant, so encapsulating themselves in a nice hard cover. From what I understand, it's quite a large bacterium, or relatively large bacterium. It sits at about 10 micrometers, for those of you interested in that sort of level of understanding it. Definitely not a pleasant disease to catch. It is, for animals, it's usually always fatal if they have been infected with it. For human beings, they have got treatments nowadays that do reduce the fatality of it, but 100 years or so ago or more, it would have been a probable death sentence. Oh my goodness, so many little pigs. Let's try and sneak up on them. They're nice and relaxed. Hello, beauties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello. Well done, Mom. You've done well with this little lot. You're going to investigate what Mom's munching on. It's so awesome to... We've had so much luck with little baby warthogs recently. Look at their little cheek fur. Tricking predators into thinking that they've got nice big tusks to defend themselves, make them look scarier. I don't think there's anything less scary out here than a baby warthog. Hello? Yes, hello? You coming to have a look at wildebeest and I? There you can see the little warts starting to grow. And are so typical of the warthog, where they get their name from. And now you can actually see, with this wonderful camera, you can actually see how fluffy they are. Surprisingly hairy little pigs. That's a little boy. Hey, little boy? 4 warts on the face, 2 below the eyes, 2 on the nose. Makes it a boy. And those will start to develop and be a way of protecting his face from any kind of attack from another male. Trot, 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 trot. Instinctive tail in the air. As soon as they start to run like that, the tail goes up immediately. It's a way of keeping in contact with the rest of the group. Hello, I'm coming to say hello. You can come. It's okay. 6 little piglets. Trot, 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 trot. I'm not sure if they're all... What are you doing there? Having a quick lie down in the sand. Oh, get trod on by the sharp hooves of the siblings. I'm not sure if they're all part of the same litter or not. I suspect that they are. They're all the same size, the same age. Oh, look at this. Oops, something scared them. I'm not sure what it was. Scatter! Scatter everywhere. It's okay, little guys. Oh, Mum's spooked at something. I don't know if it's the wind blowing. It wasn't from us. Nothing changed from our side. But you can see them all with tails in the air, dashing off. Zoom! Behind the termite mound. And the other female, who was perfectly relaxed, and I think is a little bit confused as to what is all the fuss is about, trotting somewhat reluctantly behind them. I don't know, I think it was the wind that blew, made the leaves rustle, which is a pity because they were coming right up towards the car to say hello to us. Let me go forward, or do I want to go backwards? They've just moved into or hidden behind quite thick grass. Some of the only nice tall grass that we have at the moment. Edging along the seat lines. But it might be my imagination. I think that the warthogs are looking healthier, even with just the little bit of rain that we've had, to have some fresh green grass that they've been able to be exposed to. I really think has been a treat for them. I noticed a lot of females in particular. A lot of the warthogs were looking quite thin. Their pelvises were starting to become quite prominent. And I think for the mothers it's because they were battling to meet their nutritional needs as well as lactate for their little ones. I'm Paul Rizzo. I'm glad that you could observe that cheek fuzz that the little babies have. So they keep that long white fur along their cheeks up until about 6 months when the tusks start to come through. And it's such a clever way of, and there's no other way that you can interpret it. It has to be a way of pretending to have tusks, making them look scarier than they really are. I mean, you know, not sure how effective it is. You can see how tiny they are in comparison to the adults. Nice big females, large tusks. I'm uncertain at the moment as to which one is the mother. I suspect it's the one on the left, although maybe not. She looks very round. What generally happens with warthogs, particularly with moms, with youngsters, they quite often form a loose association with another sow as a way of just having an extra set of eyes and ears. And essentially it's nap time for little piglets. It's essentially the safety in numbers approach again. I'm not entirely sure which one, and unless we see them suckling, it'd be hard to tell. It's not unheard of for warthog moms to have 6 piglets, but that's quite a lot, so you might find that these piglets are split between the two. Oh, there's a dwarf mongoose there in the middle of the screen. Hello. Watching the piglets invade. I wonder what it's thinking. Oh, there's another head come up. A surprise visit by the warthog neighbors. Sure. That is a really nice moment. Little warthogs really are absolutely adorable. Unfortunately, they've moved off quite far, so I think that will be our last visual of them. But Christopher, you were wondering which babies I think are the cutest. Wow. I don't know, Christopher, which babies do you think? Apparently Christopher says warthog babies are the cutest.
How about cheetah?
VM says cheetah. Wildebeest says cheetah. I can't really sit on the fence, can I? I have to make some kind of decision. I'm feeling pressure because warthogs are adorable. So are baby hyenas. Everybody loves baby lion cubs and leopard cubs. Baby crocodiles are really cute. I'm stuck. I'm stymied. Okay, I've made a decision. And it's one that unfortunately, for the time being, we won't be able to show you. For me, the cutest baby animal is a rhino. They are born with ears and feet that are about 10 times too big for their bodies, and they dance. When they're first born, they gamble. There's no other way to describe it. They play. They go racing round and round, mommy, and then they come racing back, and then they do this little side step with all 4 legs, and then they do little hops, and then they go to sleep. And it's just a repeated cycle, sort of every 10 or so minutes. They wake up, go and do a little dance, a little game, have a little suckle, and go to sleep. I think for me, the cutest baby is a baby rhino. Difficult, and also the noises they make. The little squealing, grunting sounds, especially when they're begging for milk from their mothers. I have a soft spot for baby rhino. And watching the bond as well between the mom, because she basically, the female rhino goes into solitude, essentially, when she has that calf. If she has a previous calf, she will kick that calf away, she'll send it off on its own. Might try to hang around her for a while in absolute confusion as to why its place in mom's life has been usurped. But she likes to spend time on her own. And for new viewers, just to update you as to why I said we couldn't show you, or we won't be able to show you at the moment, that's just because of it's the WildEarth standard approach we do within the greater Kruger area, in the Sabi Sands itself. There's always the possibility that rhino are wandering through. But obviously many of you will know, or hopefully know, that there's been a very serious increase in poaching. Now, whilst showing a rhino on camera doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to expose that rhino to a poaching risk, there's always a possibility. There's a huge amount of funding that goes into it. And also it's a statement from our side in terms of our stance on the rhino poaching difficulties that this country is facing at the moment, and the world at large is facing. It's sad, but it is unfortunately a symptom of a much larger crisis. Gracie, who's one of our 8-year-old viewers. Hello, Gracie. Welcome on the Sunset Safari. Gracie, you want to know if maybe the baby warthogs bleed when their tusks come out. And yes, Gracie, probably they do bleed a little bit because it's like growing a tooth. So I'm sure that you're starting to lose your baby teeth and starting to grow your permanent teeth. You might have noticed there's a bit of blood, and you know that itchy, sore feeling, like you want to chew on your gum or touch it all the time with your tongue? Probably for them it's quite similar. It's the same with little elephant tusks coming through. But it won't bleed a lot, and it won't be sore for them, any more so than it is for you growing your teeth or losing your baby teeth. And I'm sure that there's lots of plants out here that they could use if it got sore to make it feel a little bit better. They'll start to grow those at about 6 months old. Alrighty, well, I think it's time for us to find out what Scott has been up to over the last few minutes, so let's pop over there.
Welcome back, everyone. Just taking a few minutes breather, letting the car drive itself as I chat with you, putting my feet up as well, getting a little bit hot down in the footwell. And It's most pleasant down here in the riverbed. I'm told Bouleret was asking for a riverbed cruise, and there we go, Bouleret. Now we are about 4 or 5 minutes away from where Jamie had the Inyala carcass, which was on Mamba Road, which is just up ahead, and it's going to be interesting to see what's going on there. There's a chance that a whole bunch of vultures would have swooped down and completely cleaned up that carcass. I'm guessing that's what's going to have happened. And I think I may have just actually heard a squirrel alarm call. No. I'm imagining things, wishful thinking. Beautiful trees line the banks of this riverbed, the Mulwati. It is usually dry. I mean, last summer when we got kind of decent rainfall, it would flow temporarily after heavy rains and then dry up again so that you could drive through it. But this year it's been basically bone dry since the start of summer. We've hardly got any rainfall. And I sadly think these clouds that you're seeing aren't going to help today. But there are some positive kind of all that bad weed weak genes and just have a kind of natural change of scenery. Anyway, some zebra.
Well, Scott's going through a bit of a signal dip around the Mulwati drainage line. Look who we found on Impala Plains. It's the world's most pregnant zebra. On the theme of adorable babies. She looks as though if you touched her belly, she might give birth straight away. She is so rounded, you can almost see the angles. It's dropped shape. You can see compared to the zebra behind her how extended that stomach is. Look at that. Now that is a female on the verge of having her foal. Always amazes me the resilience of wild animals, that they're able to carry that weight like that. That looks incredibly uncomfortable, and still be able to escape predators and run around as necessary instead of waddling. There's something extraordinary about that. Heavy girl. Need to push. And to the left of her, making his way as well, is one of the cuter babies. Aww, nap time for baby zebras. That was well timed, much like our little warthog babies. It appears to be that it's time for a little afternoon chill out session. Having a good grooming as well, and you can see how fluffy this little foal still is, only a couple of months old, maybe 2 months. It's gonna have a good roll. Come on, give it a good roll. Nice scratch of the back, yes, over you go. Come on, roll over. Nope. That's such fun watching zebra doing that. They love to do it. They roll over in the dirt. Now this is probably mom sticking close by her foal. Hard to tell, I can't quite see. Look how extraordinary they look in this afternoon light. There you can see those perfect shadow stripes that we've chatted about that make it identified as a plain zebra or a Burchell zebra. Reaching down to nibble on the green shoots. Looks like this little foal can't quite decide what it's going to do. Oh, up. That was well timed. Why are you not all standing in the sun? You must be so hot. Oh, big yawn. And that fuzz, of course, is an insulating layer. There you go, you see those incisors. Remember how we've chatted about how zebra can bite? Well, it was a clear demonstration. I've mentioned before that those of you who've had encounters with domestic horses nipping you will know just how savage those bites can be. Look how dozy it looks. Head drooping, wants to be asleep, but not quite getting there. I'm gonna lie down again. Eyes closing, eyelids drooping. And I guess they've chosen this open spot so that they can see any kind of a threat. You're going to sleep, little one. Before they disappear, I just want to have a look, really, if we can, at the birds at the back for new viewers and for viewers who might have missed out on seeing them. We don't always get to put them on camera. Wattled starlings, the bright yellow faces. I just wanted to show you them quickly in case they decide to flock away. I will work at getting you a better view. In the meantime, Scott has arrived at the Nyala carcass, and let's pop over and see what he's found, because it's fascinating.
Okay, so we have reached the crime scene, and for those of you who were on the morning safari, you probably would remember, I think the Nyala carcass was somewhere here. And the reason I say that is when I look down on the ground, I can see a whole bunch of vultures' feathers, and you'll be able to see that one now, the down feathers from vultures. There's a lot of them, and if I look around here, there's an even bigger feather from a vulture. And they were obviously squabbling over this kill. There also appear to be very fresh elephant tracks here. So there's a chance an elephant may have rushed in onto the scene. There's an elephant track here. And then if we come across here, we can see where the carcass has ended up. And I saw pictures of this kill this morning, or this carcass at least, and you could see that it was an Nyala. At the moment, you can't really tell what it is, because it's been picked clean, and that's all big thanks to the vultures making sure nothing goes to waste, and that everything gets utilized out here. Now, there was a small chance that a leopard in the area, or any predators in the area, would have seen the vultures swooping down and come into the area to see if they too couldn't get an easy meal. That's what I was hoping for. But always nice to just see how quickly carcasses can be cleaned up. And we'll just let you have one last glimpse and then continue on. Probably going to slowly make my way back into the area of where, excuse me, where we are hoping to find Karula. And while we get out of this little tricky off-roading situation, we're going to send you back to Jamie, who's found you some wonderful birds.
Zebbies have moved off into a thicker block and into, I think, to go and find some shade, to be honest. Yeah, we're standing right out in the sun. Now, Viam and I, speaking from experience, can tell you that it is very warm. It is very, very warm in the sun. I'm trying to get up. Don't disappear. Go. I think that's as close as we're going to be able to sneak up on the wattled starlings. Might be able to get a nice view of their wattled faces. Something's making a squeaking noise. Can't tell if it's one of them. If there's some kind of disagreement happening. Doesn't look like it's them. So what you're looking at mainly is females, and when you see the others with the slightly larger yellow wattles around the face, that is a male. So those two there are females, and you very often find them together in these large flocks. There's a male with the wattle, and you can see much more yellow around his face. He's the one wandering in the middle of your screen. Looks like he's wearing a yellow swimming cap. It's probably the best, or one of those water polo caps. Marching around, strutting his stuff. I love the chin strap. And that, of course, is purely for breeding purposes, because if you're a wattled starling lady, there's nothing more attractive than a male with a large wattle underneath his chin and the brightest yellow skull cap you could ever... Look, he's trying to court that female. She wasn't terribly interested. That was not hugely successful. In fact, he is now all on his own. No, he's found another female. Is he going to... Yep, there goes the display again. The head bob. His dance moves. She's a bit more impressed. Oh, not that impressed, though. Oh, there he goes. Come back, lady. Aww. Dejected drop of the head. No luck. Hey, buddy. There are about 10 females there. They all rejected you. It is unfortunate. Is he going to come in for another go? Yep. Well, you've got to give it to him. He's got tenacity. Hello, lady. Look at my dance moves. Oh, distraction. Might have found something to eat. Got to keep yourself well fed. Courting is a busy business, and those dance moves will really take it out of you, especially if you've got to attempt it repeatedly before you get any kind of attention. She barely looked at him. Not impressed. Not impressed at all. Has he given up for good, or is he just distracted by the search for some kind of seed? Perhaps it's my imagination, but there's something quite dejected in that body language. Oh, I think I've spotted more females. I'm going to race across. Yes, there we go. Oh, no, that's another male. I'm going to go and intimidate him. Chase him away. Again with my dance moves. Oh, no, there's a female on the right. There's a female on the right. That's who he's displaying for. Look at those feathers. Oh, he's putting his heart into this one. Oh, so close and yet so far. Oh, he's really... Oh, buddy, I think you might be going too far. A little bit eager there. You can see he's really putting his heart and soul into this one. Wings going crazy. This is awesome. Male at the back, not paying any attention. Oh. She stuck around longer than I expected her to. She hasn't quite given in to his request. No. I can't imagine what epithet went through his head there as he walked away, but I'll leave it to your imagination. Shake it off, buddy. Shake it off. It's okay. You'll find another one. There's plenty of fish in the sea or birds in the sky or something. Oh. I have to confess, that's the first time I've ever seen that full-on wattle starling ritual. Oh, and there's what looks like a European swallow come to join the party as well. I think he's headed off to lick his wounds. Well, that was fascinating. I learned something new there. Didn't know that they did that. A ruffled dance. It's amazing. And Paul Rizzo, maybe you've put your finger on why it is that he didn't have much success with any of those lovely ladies. Paul Rizzo says it looks like an old lady walking with a yellow bonnet. Maybe the females of those particular starlings agree with you. Safari Dean, I know, he walked off whenever he got denied, as Safari Dean says. He kind of walked off, and I'm sure it's completely in my imagination, but he seemed to walk off with shoulders slumped, head down, all dejected. Terribly sad to see. I mean, there's nothing worse than seeing somebody rejected. That's incredible. That crown blackwing on the right is the babies that we watched 2 months ago, and it's already the same size as the adults. That little one with the mottled coloring, that's one of the juveniles that we've been watching around these clearings. It is now almost completely adult sized in the space of 2 months. Just the only thing that signifies it as a juvenile is that little bit of mottling around the wings and around the top of the head. Other than that, looks identical to mom and dad. Very cool. Those long legs, perfectly adapted for covering plenty of ground in these big open spaces. And off to the right, there's one of mom or dad, either mom or dad. So still hanging out with its parents. You can see what I mean now when I say there's no mottling on the adult. See how much more uniform the brown is across the back and on the top of the head. Cool. Oh, another fun bird fact for the day. Wattled starlings dance and crowned lapwings grow up very fast, but still remain with their parents at about 2 months of age. I learned something new. I'm glad that I could share it with all of you as well. I'm still chuckling at his dance. Shame, that last effort. He put in so much effort in trying to convince the lady that he was the one. Didn't pan out terribly well though. People around the world are wincing in sympathy with his efforts. We've all been there. Also, in the tree. Far tree. And we seem to be focusing quite well on birds at the moment. Well spotted, Liam. Liam's picked up on one of the raptors. Oh yes, I see him. I'm being a twit. Looks like one of the snake eagles. Let's see if he's going to cooperate with us. And then we can chat a little bit about Darlene's question. Oh, bigger. Awesome. Nothing like having a look at a raptor. It is a brown snake eagle. Look at that bright colored eye. So cool to see. And while you have a look at him, I'm going to give you, I'm just going to go through my book quickly just to find a nice answer for Darlene's question that she's asked us. Darlene, I'll be with you in one moment. But that eye is incredible. I always wonder at the reasoning behind different raptors. Most raptors have very bright yellow eyes. Some of them have brown ones though, and I'm not sure if there's any kind of advantage. It makes sense that a darker eye would be more adapted for hunting in areas where there's more glare, but I haven't noticed that particular pattern really. I've often tried to work out the logic behind the color of the eye. I guess there must be something else behind it. Maybe there's some kind of reproductive reason or attractiveness to the other birds or the other members of the species. I really don't know. I'm not entirely sure. But that was a nice view of one of our largest raptors. How did I know it was a snake eagle and not an eagle? Well, it was missing feathers down its legs and towards its feet. What I wanted to do was answer a question from Darlene. Darlene, you wanted to know if we ever get peacocks in our area, or in fact ostriches. And I'm going to split that answer into two parts. First of all, peacocks. Yes, you get peacocks in the cities. Sorry, I'm just distracted by the the grey hornbill. So yes, you get resident populations of peacocks that people have. They are imported from India. They're not native, and you often hear them in the gardens. That's in the cities itself. There's some feral populations that have established themselves. Do you think he's going to keep doing that for us? Come on. Sorry, Darlene. The grey hornbill interrupted you. He was sitting. There he goes. That's him calling. Awesome stuff. All right, just to quickly answer Darlene's question. First of all, the peacocks. We get some introduced populations. The snake eagle watching the call of the hornbills with trepidation. It's not unheard of for hornbills to dive bomb snake eagles. Oh, the birds are just putting on such a show this afternoon. I barely got around to answering Darlene's question. There is something called a Congo peacock. It is not endemic to this area. We don't find them here, but it is found within Central Africa. Now that is the Congo peacock. I've never seen one. It's on my wish list of birds that I really want to see. It's endemic to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which means I'm going to have to go traveling at some point, but you can see it doesn't have the long tail that might disadvantage a peacock of that size in a forest habitat, but it does have the bright colors. And Darlene, birds have taken the approach, because you were wondering if being brightly colored would be dangerous out here. Birds seem to have taken the approach that maybe being brightly colored is actually not such a problem in terms of the way that they function, and that's why we get things like lilac-breasted rollers and those really brightly colored, essentially the jewels of the bush that we get to see. So it's a reproductive thing. It's a way of identifying individual species, and color is not too much of a problem out here. And speaking of birds, I believe that Scott has a wonderful surprise bird to show you.
Well, take a closer look at this. I mean, we've been speaking about owls so much over the last week or so, and the fact that we haven't found any, and it's big thanks to some southern grey hornbills who were alarming, as well as yellow-billed hornbills and tree squirrels. To be honest, I thought Karula was going to be here, but eventually we found this Rose eagle owl, or giant eagle owl as they were formerly known. They are the largest of the owls in this area, and as it closes its eyelids, you'll notice they have a very pink tinge to them. And interestingly, those little tufts, which appear to be its ears, actually aren't its ears. They help it blend in and camouflage. Its ears are basically on the side of its head, almost on the left and right hand side of each eye respectively, and its whole face acts like a receiver dish for hearing, and depending on whether the sounds hit the right hand side of the face or the left hand side of the face, that is how they help to pinpoint where their prey is. And look at that. Look at the way it can turn its neck around. Almost 360 degrees. Standing still, it can survey just about every direction around it. And isn't that an awesome, awesome adaptation? I mean, it's looking directly down its spine at us now. Remarkable. Thankfully for it, it appears like a lot of the animals that were alarm calling at it have disappeared and things have calmed down now. Interestingly, as Teb zooms out, he can continue. There's one of Africa's largest mammals feeding on a marula tree not far away. And I think that this could well be the same bull that I was viewing on foot just a few days ago, feeding under the exact same tree. And he's busy scooping up the marula fruits, one by one, popping them into his mouth, sometimes 2 by 2. And a great time of year for the elephants, as this is one of definitely their favorite cuisines. Donna's just mentioned that the owl is incredibly well camouflaged up in that tree, and I mean, look now, I mean, you can hardly see that it's up there. Only once Teb zooms in can you see it. Now, this owl is capable of hunting prey as big as monkeys, just to give you an idea of how powerful it is. And Gerda has just mentioned that we are in bird paradise, and we certainly are spoilt with the bird watching at the moment. And it's important to remember that there are twice as many birds here now as there will be in the winter months, and all the migrants will head back to their respective homes in Central North Africa, and some even up to Europe and Asia. And Gerda, who knows, maybe when you come out here, you too will be spoilt with the sighting of the Verreaux's eagle owl. They've got a wonderful chanting call. But I'm not going to play that for you now off my phone, because it'll probably give this poor owl sitting here a heart attack. And that's the last thing we want to do, get it confused and make it think that there's another owl lurking nearby. What there could be lurking nearby, which I haven't managed to see, is this owl's partner. They very often hang around in pairs, and they do form monogamous bonds, so it could be that its mate is sitting somewhere nearby. Hard to say where. I don't think it's in this tree. Thanks, Tebs, for letting everyone have a scan around there. I did hear some squirrels alarm calling kind of further away from us, and I was intrigued as to whether the squirrels could actually see the owl or whether they were just jumping in on the bandwagon with all the other animals that were alarm calling, or possibly that they can see this individual's partner perched up in another tree closer to where they were alarming. So those are the two kind of possibilities. I wasn't watching, but I'm told that it may have just had a poop. And interestingly, Sebs, if you don't mind actually just filming down on the ground here, this may well be a regular perch. And I'm on a small bush. That one, you can see some white. Oh, the elephant flapped its... Oh, there goes another toilet break. Yeah, this is its usual perch, I think. Unless it's just been sitting in it. It may fly now because it's lightening its load. So let's stay on the owl, because I feel like it's going to fly off. But the elephant shook its head, and I thought it was the owl's wings beating as it took off, but it was just the elephant's ears flapping against its head. That's right. Now, it will be interesting to know how many times we could have driven past the owl sitting here, because I see quite a few droppings, and whether they're all from today, whether the owl was well fed and had a lot of business to do, I'm not sure, but it's going to be worth checking this in the future, because they do like kind of fairly regular hangouts, these birds. Well, Tom and Dallas, you've already got 4 new birds today. That's great news. And Teresa, I'm not sure how you've got today, but you're up to 213. So you are hugely high up, and I'm guessing obviously it's this Faroese eagle owl that's notched you up. One more bird. Great stuff, and well done to both Tom and Teresa on your bird lists. What is the owl going to do? It's looking a lot more alert and aware now. I'm just not too sure what it's going to do. It could fly off. The problem though is if it flies off during the day, a lot of the birds that will mob it and alarm call it will be allowed to see it, and then it'll just attract a whole bunch more of attention to itself, further complicating its life. Hello, Wayne in Philadelphia. And, oh, it looks like it's going to make a move now. Wayne is interested to know if they only hunt at night, and yes, these owls, as far as I'm aware, are almost strictly nocturnal hunters. Although some of the owls, especially the smaller owls, the owlets, the barred and the pearl spotted, they can be quite active during the day, interestingly enough. And the only time I've actually seen one of these birds hunting, it was absolutely awesome. We were all sitting around the fire at Inga's house, which is one of the 2 areas of accommodation here at Yuma for the Safari Live crew. And we're sitting around the campfire, and then all of a sudden in the tree above us, big guinea fowl, well, one guinea fowl started shrieking, and the others all started letting off their loud alarm call. And yeah, it looks like it's getting ready to fly off, and I'm going to try and turn the vehicle around because Tibbs isn't going to be able to film it as it flies off if we stay here. That should work a little bit better, or it could just be that it's wanting to get more out of our view, which it's done a great job of doing, because now we can hardly even see where it's perched, but it is somewhere in there. Hard to believe, and maybe it's just feeling a little bit more comfortable now that we can't see it. Let's carry on before we disturb it too much so that it does fly off. Thank you, Mr. Owl. I'm just going to pull away a few meters and then we can watch the elephant feeding. As I was saying though, it was probably at around 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden these guinea fowls started making a commotion, and immediately I anticipated that it was one of these owls responsible for causing the chaos, and shone the torch up there, and there was this Faroese owl with its wings sprawled out in a very thickly wooded ebony tree or jackalberry tree, and it eventually managed to kill the guinea fowl. I mean, a guinea fowl is a big bird. We saw them earlier. I mean, about the size of a large chicken. And it eventually managed to kill it, and then it flew off after about 10 or 15 minutes. We were sitting back around the campfire, and it flew off, but then dropped the guinea fowl as it was flying off, and we heard the thud, kudunk, and went and watched where it dropped it, and eventually it came back, picked up the guinea fowl, and managed to fly off with it successfully. That was the only time I've seen them hunt, and it was quite late at night. I've forgotten about a second kill. Also on Philemon's cut line, some of you may remember, we saw a Faroese eagle owl swoop down and catch a little mouse. We couldn't see exactly what it had caught because it swallowed it up so quickly, but that, in all likelihood, that it was a smaller prey item. Also again, just after dark. And Cindy in Tennessee, sorry, I probably wasn't too clear on it, but we were actually looking at that owl's back. When it was turned looking at us, it was looking directly down its own spine. Remarkable flexibility that these animals have. Not so much the elephant's neck, but they've got that trunk that's so flexible. All the animals have their own little different skill sets or traits. It would be wonderful to have a trunk for a day just to experience what it's like. Oh, another toilet break. And Maggie in Australia would like to know if I know how it is possible that these... Oh, you may have just seen the top of a little pickup car. That was either Alex or Eugene racing off to try and solve some kind of a tech issue, so that's what that was. Maggie, I don't know the inner workings of the owl's vertebra and veins and arteries in and around the neck, but it certainly is remarkable that it can swivel the neck around so much without causing any damage to those very important parts of the anatomy. Now, I wonder which is the next tree that this elephant's going to go to. Let's see if we can forecast it. In Houston, you would like to know if the female Varro's eagle owl's call is a more high-pitched whistle. Not that I am aware of, and I know that it's not on my little bird app. I will play my bird app for you now. I just want to try and work out which marula tree that this elephant's going to go to next, and then I'm going to put my little camera down right next to one of the fruits and see if we can't video it picking one up. This is going to be fun. So, there's the camera. I'm going to put it right next to an actual fruit. And then reverse and see if we can't capture it. This is going to be so much fun. And then I'll get out my app and play the bird call. Okay, well, I feel like the elephant may not come to this tree, but it was worth a little gamble there. So interesting that you've heard the female's call is more high-pitched, because sadly, on the owl call that I have on my app, there's only a bird. It only says that there's one bird calling, and this is the call. So quite a strange call, and let me check in the book now to see if in fact they may tell us anything more about the calls of this owl. Sadly, the elephant's going straight past the tree we wanted it to go to, but that's how it goes sometimes. Varro's eagle owl call, deep grunting, hock, 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 sometimes in uneven duets. Female at lower pitch is all that it says. So, not too sure where you heard your information about the female having a louder call than well, sorry, a more high pitch call than the male, but I'm not convinced that that is the case, at least not from our experience and not from the books that we have. I'm going to leave my little camera there in case this Ellie decides to go to that tree next. Iggy, on YouTube, you've just confirmed my worst fears that the elephant will try and go off with the GoPro, and let's hope that that does not happen. I've got a friend of mine who's actually did the same thing as what we're doing now, and the elephant picked up the little GoPro and the end of its trunk, and my friend had the automatic remotes out and managed to get some elephant selfie snaps. Elephant taking a selfie of itself, and he takes some awesome pictures and has a great adventure up in Kenya. Paolo Perazzi, worth checking out actually. Good point. That's just come through from Nikki in Farmer Control, and she says maybe that this is the bull that was trailing along with the short trunk family. You would be able to work it out. So if any of you took screenshots, he's got a little bit of a tear in his right ear. And maybe maybe just coincided at the water point at a similar time to that herd, that small herd. Let me reposition again. To Deborah in Florida, and you were actually out here in November and got to see this trunkless or half-trunk female elephants. So that's awesome stuff, and you'd like to know if it's possible that a female will go off on her own to give birth. And no, not as far as I'm aware. Elephants will stay within the herd when they do give birth and have all the other females and friends around to aid and assist. And I think you said that she was part of a herd when you were here in November, and yes, she occasionally joins up with a herd, but the majority of the time she is actually alone. So not too sure why she prefers that. It's an abnormality that I've never really noticed in the past. Oh, we might be in luck, and this Ellie may head to the next marula tree. Let's see what happens. And the only catch is the app on my phone is for some reason not connecting to the camera. So it will be a tragedy if it in fact goes to the right spot and I can't turn the camera on. And it looks like that could well just happen. Let's rush across to Jamie, who's got some big kudu males. This Ellie's not going anywhere, but the kudu may well.
And while Scott repositions for that wonderful Ellie on quarantine, we have found some extraordinary, beautiful male kudu to show you. Looking particularly dignified in this morning light. Oh, sorry, not morning. Got my times of day confused. Afternoon light. Look at that. Isn't that much more magnificent than a kudu? You can see the ridges along his horns. And what's nice about this is that it's not just one, but 4 of them all around the different area. Luckily, playing nicely, not disappearing off into the thick vegetation as I think they wanted to do. Awesome to see. On alert, and they have to be at the moment. It is so windy. I think this is the group that we fairly often see around this area. I was wrong, there are 5 of them. I haven't seen the fabled Zeus, but they all are fairly large size. Now this male that we were looking at, he's still got a little bit of growing to do, believe it or not. And this magnificent head of horns that would stand probably close to a meter in height, if not more, so 3 feet. Oh, here comes another stunning one. You can see what I mean. This is a really fully grown kudu. Almost 3 twirls of those horns. Awesome. I just wanted to show you that quickly, but Scott is repositioned, so let's go back to his elephant.
Well, he's just about to get to the GoPro. It's just on the floor in front of him, and I've just connected in time. And let's hope that he will find it. It's just over there. There's a little marula right in front of it. And there's a strong chance we're going to get a very cool video. I can even show you here on my camera what the preview is. So that's the view we're getting. Probably not the best view. Oh, he's coming towards it. There's a bit of a delay on my camera, but he's going straight towards it. And is he going to crush it, or is he just going to pick up the fruits? Yay, he's moved it. He's smelling it. Oh no, he just threw the stick away that it was. Uh-oh. And he's not interested. Oh no, is he going to stand on it? He's standing right above the GoPro, and I think he's actually put some snot on it because now the screen's not clear. Oh no, I think he did. He put some of that elephant snot onto the screen, and you can see it's blurred it all. But I'm going to stop the video and I'll be able to show you it again. I was watching the video as well as the elephants, and that was great fun. Well, I'm glad that worked out, and I'm glad the GoPro didn't get squashed, and I'll be sure to put that up for everyone to enjoy. Well, that was exciting. And maybe while it's just casually feeding, I'll get the video up to the exciting points and then play it back to you. But for now, you can keep watching the Ellie. Whew. My heart is racing. Okay, Tibbs, I think we're ready to have a quick viewing, and let's see how it comes out here. I'll try and make sure the glare is not too bad. So here he comes. That's where the snot came in. There we go. There you see the snot getting wiped all over it. And now he just casually walks over it. And what an interesting angle, one we don't get to see very often. So that was good fun. And like I said, I will be sure to show. Oh, it looks like he's coming back. Let me get ready to take another video. Oh. I'm not ready. Oh, there's the GoPro in his mouth. The GoPro's in his mouth. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, he's thinking about standing on it. Oh no, I think that could be the end of the GoPro. But, you know, these things happen. And that's going to make for an interesting video. It appears like it may have actually, and the GoPro is still working, I think, although I'm not getting much of a picture. So that could be the end of the GoPro. Time will tell. And that's what happens when you play with animals like elephants. They can teach you a lesson very quickly. Hello, boy. Really bizarre that he was so interested by it to the point of chewing on it. And it's a pity I was a little bit late on that second video. Sorry about that. Did we ruin your meal? I don't think so. You're just going to go and look for some more marulas at the next tree. We'll make sure not to disguise the GoPro amongst your buffet. Let's go and do some damage control. In Denmark. Hello. And yes, elephants will shake trees in order to get marula fruits out of them. As you can see, it's covered in slobber, and the slobber has therefore caused the sand to stick to it. But everything seems to be okay, so no harm done, and the GoPro lives to tell another day. And we are sure to have some interesting footage from that whole sequence. So yes, elephants, especially the bulls, will come up, Kirsten, against the trees and shake them. And it's the most awesome thing to see and also hear, because you hear all of the fruits dropping down onto the ground simultaneously. Well, Safari Dean and Pam Shirley, along with a few others, wasn't that such good fun? And you couldn't help surely but laugh in a situation like that. Are you going back to have a look and see if you can chew on my GoPro again, youngster? Hey, boy. He is heading straight back to that tree, interestingly enough. Maybe he's confused and wants to work out exactly what that was. Such intelligent animals, and I've got a feeling that he's gone back there because he saw us go there. He's trying to work out now what on earth was going on. Why was there that little device there? And he's sniffing around exactly where it landed, exactly where I bent down to pick it up. And his senses may just be good enough to actually be able to tell where my hand actually touched the ground to scoop up this device. Fascinating. Steph, you're right, and I appreciate your humor. Whatever that elephant did end up doing to the GoPro would have been at no cost to itself. It would have been entirely on me. Awesome stuff. Gilly, yeah, that was almost more than just a week's pocket money gone. That would have been a month's pocket money gone for me if he had have decided to break that little toy. So I'm very, very happy he didn't, because then I would have been one toy down for the foreseeable future. He's now gone back to the same tree where he initially fed, which is interesting stuff. So maybe it has got actually nothing to do with the fact that the GoPro was there, and he just wanted to go back in the direction he's come from. Good. Well, we're going to send you across to Jamie for a quick update, and we'll keep you updated when you get back.
And while Scott has been with that elephant, it feels as though VM and I have spent the entire afternoon dodging the trees that he's pushed into the road. It might not be the same elephant, of course, but driving along Balanites, which is one of the main routes that we take, it looks as though, I can't describe it, it looks as though that an elephant walking down that road had a tantrum. There are just trees absolutely everywhere. Now, naturally, I would have jumped out and moved them, of course, but as it was, there were lots of buffalo standing around, so I absolutely couldn't. But it was chaos. It was absolute chaos. Every time I came around a corner, there was another tree in the road. And of course, that in itself is a symptom of the drought. Elephants targeting trees because they carry more nutrients. There's not much in the way of grass left. The other interesting thing that I saw, and unfortunately it happened so fast that we couldn't actually get them on camera in order to show you, came across one of the strangest sights I've seen recently. We drove around the corner next to a water pan, a mud wallow. There was a female buffalo, a new calf, so they have started calving, by the way, new buffalo calf, a sub-adult, and a male. Only 4. No other signs of the rest of the herd, no tracks, no sounds of them moving in the bushes further in. I don't know if she got separated when she moved off to have her calf. Maybe the sub-adult is her previous year's calf that accompanied her. I don't know. Unfortunately, because it's so windy, and I also think because it's so, because they're such herd animals, I think that they were scared, or more skittish than usual, because as soon as I stopped to try and put the camera on them, they rushed off. In case you're wondering why I reversed and then carried on, you just hear dwarf mongooses doing their little cheeping contact call. They are around. There's one that's just ducked in here. I guess my magic mongoose contact call is not working this afternoon. Nope. Oh, that was the opposite effect. Oh well. We've had plenty of really nice dwarf mongoose sightings over the last few days. I'll keep an eye out. But I do want to continue on my search for Karula. I still haven't found it. I found where Brent had her tracks going in. Still haven't found any sign of them coming out. Ooh. And I was just wondering whether it might be worth coming to check Treehouse Dam. Treehouse Dam has one of the most, actually surprisingly, one of the most permanent water sources within Djuma itself. And it seems to have some kind of underground supply, whether it's a water spring or whatever it is. The elephants have dug into the mud at Treehouse Dam, and there's constantly water seeping up through it. I'm hoping that maybe, because there are elephant tracks coming through here, maybe they've dug some fresh water and there might be animals around there. For a creature like a leopard, hanging out around a water hole is not just a nice way to have fresh water every now and again, but most importantly, it means that you're guaranteed to have prey animals trying to make their way down to come and have a drink. Now, yesterday when we spotted her, yesterday evening, I was out with Steph and Tevs on a tracking team adventure. She was looking incredibly full. I know that you saw with Brent and with Liam, had a big round belly, so we think that she had a kill somewhere. She's obviously left it and moved down into this area. Maybe the kill has made her thirsty and she wants to come and have a drink around the water holes. I think I'm going to check around Gallagher Waterhole after this. Go and check around there. to Treehouse Dam now. It seems very quiet. Let's go and investigate, see if there's any sign of her. Noticed that the leopards of Djuma, or that wander through Djuma, also really like the drainage line system that comes from around Treehouse Dam. Definitely has a high concentration of prey animals. Oh, my favorite dam wall. I always concentrate particularly hard whilst driving across here, just in case we decide to take a tumble off the edge. No water though, unfortunately. Doesn't look like the elephants have come by and done any digging recently. And not much water is seeped in to those big holes that that big hole that we're seeing over there. It's our wild dog's favorite hiding place. They like to go and lie in the mud there. Although it is muddy, it doesn't look like there's any fresh water coming through. Well, there's an intense value and an intense coexistence between the local people of this area, or there would have been up until civilization took hold and things changed. There is a very deep connection between the local people. Look at that sky. Told you it was a beautiful evening. Stunning. This is one of my favorite times of day to be out here. I think it's a time of day everybody loves watching the sun start to go down. Everybody loves a beautiful evening. It seems to bring us a deeper connection to the nature and what it is that we're seeing and looking at. And in terms of that connection, which is where my next thought was going, obviously the indigenous people of this area will have utilized the resources as people have done for the last however many centuries. And smart redhead, welcome on the sunset. What is wrong with me? It is not morning, it is evening. The sunset safari. And you wanted to know what animal species indigenous people of this area may hunt for food. And the answer to that is almost all of the prey species are a target or were a target and are probably still a target. So different techniques in different areas. Obviously the famous ambushmen of the Kalahari in those areas, famous for being able to poison or concoct a poison that they then darted into something like a kudu, whatever they could find. And obviously the bigger the animal, the more the risks in terms of hunting it, but the more reward. And every part of the animal would have been utilized in much the same way as the earlier people of the various Western civilizations would have done. Slow down as we go through this drainage line, make sure I check properly for parula. And people still utilize the various animal species in this area. They will hunt impala, they will hunt inyala. All of them are possible food sources, and in a lot of traditional cultures, the skins of the animals are also highly, highly valued in terms of clothing. So they are still utilized and eaten. One of the biggest problems now is that techniques have changed. And of course for a lot of the desperate local people, laying snares is one way that they might go about it. But luckily for us, the area that we're in is incredibly well protected. We're totally free from anybody utilizing any of the game species. This is all land that is protected by the laws of the country, which means its animals are as well. There's no way that anybody could go about getting away with hunting them. No sign of her popping out here. The last time I think that anybody had seen her before yesterday evening, or before they'd seen Gorilla yesterday evening, was with Scott when he went out on his first drive, and that was around Business Road, which is where we are now. So she obviously likes to hang out in this area. I always double and triple check the termite mounds. It's a good place, it's a very good place to start looking. I believe Scott was driving down this road, he did an absolute double take and went back to have a look at her sitting on top of a termite mound. So we've got, it is fascinating to try and work out and play a bit of a guessing game as to where Karula might be heading, where she's going to go next. I'm not sure. Darlene, I hope you're still watching, just while I'm thinking about it. I never really finished off your question on the bird species. We finished off the peacock answer, but I never answered about ostriches. Ostriches, of course, are the biggest bird species in the world, flightless bird, and yes, we do get ostriches here. I can't remember, I think I've asked this before, but have you ever seen an ostrich on a live safari?
Not on Juma.
Not on Juma. It is something that is possible. Generally, to prefer the more open areas. You find them within the Kruger Park. You'll see them very regularly. But as I've said, it's completely. This whole area is completely unfenced.
Brian and Mark.
Brian and Mark.
Oh.
I think Brian did. Now that you mention it, I think Brian did say something to me about it. I'm not sure if any of the if you have an answer to that particular question. If you have seen an ostrich on a live drive, please let me know. It's always interesting to hear the history of some of the more unusual animal sightings, things like brown hyena, ostrich, sable. I have no idea if sable have ever been seen on these drives. We could see them. And a sable, for those of you who don't know, is a large black sable, black antelope species. There's apparently been one at the Incoral Pan fairly regularly, which is not that far away from us. But yes, Darlene, and for any other viewers who are wondering, we could get ostriches. I'm always on the lookout for their two-toed track. They've got one large toe and one small toe next to each other. Very unusual footprints, but also very easily identifiable. Maybe one day we'll come around the corner and there will be an ostrich fluffed up and waiting for us. Imagine our surprise. You'll notice that I'm driving about. I do actually have a sort of a set route in my head. It might look absent-minded. I do have a rough idea as to where I'm going. I want to go and double check along Ingwe Alley. I know Scott did check earlier, but you never know when a leopard might pop out. You know she's somewhere in this area. I've been distracted now. And just while I get a nice view of these eddies in the sunset, I'm not going to stay with them for too long, but let's just pop over and have a look. Naomi, you were wondering how long it took me to learn the roads of Juma, and whether I went on any kind of course or anything like that. Oh, it's the ones with Scott earlier. Now this I do want to see. Sorry, bear with me. Hello. Have you got a brand new baby? Well done, girl. That's a very tiny little one. Only a month or two old. It's been a while since, apart from recently, been a while since we saw this female with the snared trunk. I'm fairly certain it's her. I'd have to have a proper look at her to really... Yes, there's that notch in the middle of her ear. Is her little female calf. Well done, girl. Just goes to show that she's perfectly capable of living a normal life. even with her slight trunk disability. Oh, I'm glad I got to see this. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this elephant. When I first saw her, I sat and watched her struggle to finish off a sicklebush tree that she was eating. And ever since then, I've always enjoyed her. She's quite a feisty cow. He doesn't suffer falls. It's nice to see her with a tiny little baby. That's obviously where she's disappeared off to over the last few months. I didn't even realize she was pregnant. I don't remember. Maybe I did. I can't remember anymore if I remarked upon it. I don't think so. I don't think I did. And here come her two constant younger companions out into the road. I'm really glad I got to see this. That is happy news. No, just going back to what Smart Redhead's question was, you know, I spoke about people utilizing food sources out here, and unfortunately sometimes elephants like that cow with a snared trunk could well have come from a snare injury. Sometimes they do accidentally get caught up in those moments in terms of their conflict with human beings, or not necessarily conflict, but just encountering each other within the outskirts of these protected areas and the bordering or the neighboring villages, where desperate people put down snares to try and supplement their diet, and then they get to the point where elephants like her get caught by mistake. Probably didn't happen around the Sabi Sands. It's probably an old injury that happened when she was younger. Wow, well, I'm glad I got to see that. That's made me very happy. I'm not going to go and bother them any further. I know that you had quite a nice sighting with these Eddies with Scott earlier. But just from a purely selfish point of view, I'm quite chuffed that I got to see that. I'm really happy for her. Nice to see her successfully raising her own family, essentially, and starting her own herd. And that new little one raises a question from Pam Shirley. He wanted to know whether or not elephants lie down to give birth. And for the most part, no. Not as far as I know. I wouldn't be surprised if they do occasionally. I think that the majority of the time, birth or labor happens with them standing, or at least the last parts. Generally what happens when the animals go into labor is they quite often stand, they lie down and strain for a little while, have a bit of a rest, and then stand up again and carry on. So in my experience, I've never witnessed an elephant birth before. I've just missed one once by a couple of minutes. The placenta was still warm when I got there. But as far as I know, most births will be standing up. And what's nice as well is the fact that we saw that buffalo calf. There's always a chance now that we could start seeing brand new buffalo calves to add to our collection of summertime babies that seem to be everywhere. And Donna Miller, who's watching our sunset safari, you want to know if it's possible that she's starting her own herd. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what's happening. And she will forever be the matriarch of that herd until she reaches the age where she can no longer be the matriarch, which is too old. No, sorry, Franklin, you can come. I'll separate you. There you go. Just a quick crested Franklin sighting to entertain you. They're always such comical birds to watch. Maybe. cool. Okay, thank you. So both Osira and Ellen Fowler, while we look at one of Juma's smallest birds, or while we were looking at one of Juma's smaller birds, both Osira and Ellen Fowler let me know that there were ostriches seen on a live safari, and that was with Tara. That's awesome. It does happen, apparently. Just like I know that there was one very brief sighting of a brown hyena years ago. Those are the sort of moments that we live for, those really unexpected sightings that nobody sees coming. I'm definitely looking to add an ostrich to many of your bird lists. Not quite like trying to film one of the little brown jobbies that Brett's been showing you. A little bit bigger than that. I was in the middle of answering the question from Donna Miller. Yes, I think that female is starting her own herd. Now, we spoke a bit about it and the fact that she would have had to have come from a herd initially, and whether she got separated when that injury occurred to her trunk, or whether it was just the fact that the herd kept moving on without her and eventually left her behind. I think it has got to the point where she's forming her own group. Her youngsters or the youngsters with her are probably her calves, and now she's supplemented their numbers with one little female. And of course, all elephants in an elephant herd are related to each other in some way, and that, I guess, is a perfect example of how they begin. One of Karula's favorite paths. In Safari Dean, we were wondering how birds are classified and whether they're classified according to, oh goodness, there's a stump there. Whether they're classified according to whether or not they fly or whether they are on the ground. And it's a combination of different factors. Yes, definitely one of those will be where they generally are found. So flightless birds, in terms of actually flightless birds, we only have two in South Africa that we could see, one of which, if we saw, let me put it this way, if we saw an ostrich, I would be quite happily surprised. If we saw the other flightless bird that you find in South Africa, I would be gobsmacked. If we found one in the Sabi Sands, it would definitely come as a surprise. The reason I say that, of course, is because the other flightless bird within South Africa is the penguin. So you can imagine, it would be fairly unexpected. Clunking everywhere. This is one of Karula's favorite areas, but it is one of the trickier roads to negotiate. In Safari Dean, they're classified according to being flightless, ground-based, or flighted. They're also classified in terms of beak, put together in families by food sources, beak sizes or beak shapes, nest types. They're all united by different factors. Tail shapes, leg shapes, feet structures, lots and lots of different ways that the animals are basically grouped together with their closest evolutionary relatives. Sorry, I was in the middle of answering Naomi's question. Chatting about that road really should have jogged my memory. Sorry, I got so distracted by the sight of that Ellie with her new calf, I completely forgot. Naomi wants to know about how long it took me to learn the roads, or whether I went on any kind of course in order to get to know them. With new guides in any areas, to give them a map, let them hop in a vehicle in between drives and say, now go. We always run the risk of getting lost, but so far most of us have come back in one piece. Except Eugene, who went on the most incredible adventure I have ever known about. That was very impressive. Those of you who missed out, Eugene took an unplanned safari all the way down through the Sabi Sands. He took a wrong turn. It happens. You lose your sense of direction and off you go. And you wind up at the southern gate of the Sabi Sands as opposed to the northern. So it does happen out here. I have been lost many times. I accidentally trespassed whilst getting to know the roads here. Luckily, I was found by one of the guides who was allowed in that particular trespass area, who, after laughing hysterically for about 5 minutes, had sent me packing in the right direction. In terms of how long I've taken to get to know the roads, Djuma was fairly easy. Djuma is quite structured in the way it's set out. I have to confess, Naomi, I don't know Arathusa roads. There's a lot of time that I spend driving around on Arathusa where I know roughly where I am, but I'm never quite entirely sure what the road is called or what the next road is called. Makes for some interesting experiences. I like getting lost. While I go and check around Karula's favorite Galago Pan, Scott has got a beautiful view of the sky to show you.
So as Tebs zooms out of this beautiful scene, or into this beautiful scene, depends on what you prefer, I guess, you guys are in for a treat. Look at all the different shapes and patterns of these clouds. A wonderful, wonderful sunset here on Djuma. And let's just sit for a moment and see if we can't see anything. And it hasn't been the most noisy of evenings with regard to birdsong, but let's just keep quiet and enjoy some tranquility. Not much to hear, but those little moments of silence can not only be enjoyable, but can also be hugely productive. And sometimes when you just sit and listen, you can hear some very useful clues from Mother Nature. Not sure if you could hear that. That was a red-crested corehorn calling off in the distance. Possibly a little bit too far for you though, sadly. Okay, well, we're going to pan across slowly to the right until the moon is in view, just to give you a bit more of an idea of where we are in relation to it. And then as soon as we get a view of it, you're going to hop across onto Jamie's vehicle. Ah, there it is.
Well, Scotty, we see your sunset and beautiful evening sky, and we raise you one beautiful close-up of an almost full moon. Just a couple of days until it would be full. You can even see on this wonderful camera, you can even see the craters off to the right. And I think it is a waxing moon, hey? It's not, I'm not entirely sure. I'm checking with VM, VM's not sure either. I'm fairly certain we've just come from new moon and it's now waxing to full moon. And this to me looks like we've got another 3 or 4 days until this moon is completely full. And it definitely changes the way that the animals react at night. When the moon is full, you can walk through the bush, you can see almost like it's daylight. It casts moon shadows everywhere. And it means that even the diurnal animals are moving about much more than they would usually on the dark, moonless nights. The turtle doves always seem to, in particular, there's something about turtle doves and woodlands kingfishers that full moons in particular tend to confuse them. They get surprised by their presence and they start to call. Shirley, I think we do. I think Africa does have some of the most glorious and beautiful sunsets in the world. The wonderful thing about our sunsets out here is that I've never experienced one that looks the same. I know that, that I suppose applies across the world, but somehow the feel of it is enhanced, the beauty of the sunset is enhanced by this feeling of space that you get out here that I've never encountered anywhere else. I don't know what it is about the African sky, but it always, to me, feels much further up. Which doesn't make any sense. It's exactly the same height everywhere, but somehow it feels bigger, it feels more vast. And knowing that you're in one of these wild areas. Whoop, sliding down the bump there, that road might need a bit of packing. Starting to become a donga. That bump slightly jolted me out of my profound train of thought. Oh, the other thing I was going to say that enhances the sunset is beneath the layers of the bird calls and the trees rustling and our babbling in whatever sighting we happen to be in. I'm sure many of you have noticed, and those of you who have come to visit these sorts of areas will have experienced it. There's a level beneath that that is the deepest silence that I've ever encountered in my entire life. There's no background noise of traffic, talking. Yes, there's surface level sounds, but beneath it is a silence that can only be described as profound at times. One of my favorite aspects of being out here, and I find when I do go back home and visit the cities, I'm actually for the first 3 days, I'm quite unsettled and on edge, just because I can't get used to the constant stimulation of the noises happening around me. Awesome. So there's another aspect, something that we don't get within South Africa, and I've never seen. It's on my list of things that I would love to see. But Raisa, who is in Finland, apparently you've got the Northern Lights broadcaster. The name's just gone out of my head. Borealis. Borealis. I'm having a moment. It's not working. No, I know the term. It's just I'm having a slight. It happened to me yesterday evening as well. Aurora Borealis. There we go. It's out. I managed to get it out. This happened to me as well yesterday evening. My speech pattern just went to the dogs. Raisa, that's on my list of things I would really love to see. Apparently you've got clear skies for the next 3 hours, which means that you could get to actually view it. I'm a little bit jealous. I would love to be able to pop over there for a while and just join you, much as I'm sure you'd love to be able to pop over for our African sunsets at times. One day I will get to see them. Those incredible flashes of color across the sky, I can only imagine that it is totally otherworldly. Enjoy, Raisa. I really hope you get to see them. Raisa, maybe suggestion from us. If you film it or if you get some nice images of it. I don't really know much about filming the Northern Lights, or if it is easy to do, or if you can get good pictures. But if you do, please share them with us. I know I would love to see them, and I'm sure many of our other viewers would enjoy that as well. Those of us who've never got to experience it in person. Greg from Georgia. Greg from Georgia, who is watching on YouTube. Yes, Greg, I'm chatting to you. Greg doesn't quite believe that this is a live safari. Thinks we might have pre-recorded it. So, Greg, hi. We're coming to you from our elephant. That's how you can tell that it's not. And I promise you, Greg. Hello, boy. Hi. Hello, my boy. Have you got a GoPro in you? Or are you tired of playing with such trivial human pursuits? Cool, man. I'm not deliberately trying to follow Scott's Ellie sightings around. It just seems to be happening. And Greg, the joys of live safaris. First of all, anything live is unpredictable because you can't edit it and you cannot script it in any way. Out here, it makes it even more fun. You never know what's going to happen, whether it's the presenter giving you a special mention or answering your question, or whether it is wild dogs dashing into hyena dens. So, Greg, you can watch us twice a day. We do these live safaris every day, twice a day. We show you some of the most incredible stories and sights on Earth. And it's like watching a sports game live. You know that it's happening while you're watching. It's actually happening in Africa. And that, to me, is one of the most phenomenal aspects of this product that we bring you. And we also like to hear from you, and if you want to ask questions that you want to send through, or if you want to make a comment, even if it's to question whether or not we're actually live, you are more than welcome to do so. You can do so on YouTube, you can do it on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And I promise you, some of the things that happen, you will be highly amused by some of our reactions. And if that doesn't convince you that we're live, I nearly dumped my antenna on the road there by mistake. If that doesn't convince you that you're live, well, nothing will. Veritas has been watching for a year now and says that it still blows their mind that this is actually live and coming to you directly from Africa. I wish I could explain to you a little bit better how it works, but my technological grasp throughout my life has always been somewhat woefully lacking. At least what I can tell you is that we sit with a cameraman who brings you the most incredible image, and I remain convinced that we have some of the best cameramen in the world. You have to be on the ball if you're filming live wildlife. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, Liam agrees. Liam agrees. And up behind us is a big antenna that sends the signal up into the sky somehow, and then some magic happens and it comes back down, and then I don't know, whatever happens inside your computer brings you the live picture. The best explanation I can possibly offer to you. All I can tell you is a bit about the wild and the fact that we have wonderful cameramen.
Wonderful what?
Cameramen.
Oh, yeah.
Viv wanted to repeat. negotiate the elephant roadblocks. Scott is sitting listening to the evening sounds, so let's pop over there and hear what he's hearing.
So, sadly, with the strong breeze that's blowing, it's difficult to actually hear a hell of a lot. So, we shall continue. Obviously, there's still a bigger chance of hearing something with the vehicle off than with it on, regardless of how windy it is. But the wind's just meaning we can't hear as far as we usually would. Spencer, and yes, it is indeed the summer season here in South Africa. The kind of main summer months are November, December, January. Those are the 3 months in the kind of height of the summer, and then June, July, August would probably be the 3 months in the height of the winter, I guess. So there we have it. Although it's not a regular summer, Colleen, we are experiencing a major drought. So you can see about twice or 3 times as far as you usually would be able to see had we have received our normal rainfall. It's incredibly sparse and barren at the moment, which makes our lives a lot easier because we can see further into the bush. It's easier to track animals generally because it's slightly more dry and dusty than it usually would be. So better for us, but not better for the animals, that's for certain. And it's going to be interesting to see how much of a toll it does take on them in those drier months in the middle of our winter. As I didn't mention, but I guess I should, just to clarify, Colleen, it's a summer rainfall area, South Africa, or the majority of South Africa, except for Cape Town, really. The Cape of South Africa has got a Mediterranean climate, the rest of which has summer rainfall and winter dry season. So, like I said, come the dry season, the proper dry season, it's going to be very interesting to see how the animals cope. I mean, there's still time between now and then for some rain, but the vegetation's got a lot of catch up to do. And Keys Megan, I'm not too sure how to pronounce your name, but yes, this is a live safari. It's hard to believe, but we do answer your questions live, instantaneously, so send them through, and it's a great pleasure to have you involved in this safari. Be sure to tune in tomorrow morning at 0500 Central Africa time for the sunrise safari for 3 hours. We do 2 3-hour safaris, morning and afternoon. And you're interested to know whether myself, I'm Scott, and Jamie's the girl, are both in a similar area. And at the moment, yes, we are. We're quite close to one another. We're always within the same general area. We're in the Sabi Sands of South Africa on a property called Djuma. And if not here on Djuma, we're across on Arathusa, our neighbors. And sometimes we spread far apart, but the reason we've been quite close to one another, within about a mile or 2 miles of one another today, is because we had female leopard tracks heading into this general area. So we've both been fine combing and hoping that we can find her. It's a female leopard, in all likelihood called Karula, and we know the leopards individually, or at least a lot of them. As with the lion, we're getting to know the hyena clan. We know the animals quite intimately in this area, or at least those that are territorial. And there's a few minutes left, and maybe we will get lucky. And Megan, it's not only you that's just discovered the show. Will Game Bro says he has signed in and is fully subscribed to Safari Live, so high five and welcome on board, Will Game Bro. Joseph in Georgia, you've asked a very tricky question. What has been my most memorable find so far in my guiding career? And there's so many different genres. I guess it's similar to saying what is your most exciting sighting that I would have witnessed in my career so far. But the most memorable find that comes to mind at the moment would probably be the first time I ever found a leopard's den. And it was with my tracker at the time, a guy called James Mdugga. We weren't too far away from here in the southern Sabi Sands, and we had spent about a week very cautiously trying to work out where this female leopard was exactly, or at least where her den was. We saw tracks going backwards and forwards into this massive area of rocky outcrops. Now, when a leopard has got cubs, you need to be very, very cautious because they can be quite moody, and that's why we had to really take our time about it and go about it slowly. But eventually, early one morning, we saw her lying up on the top of this rocky outcrop, and we were on foot while we found her, and we just stayed where we were. We weren't sure. We don't think that she actually knew we were there, and we were quite a good distance away. And then eventually one cub came out, and then a second cub came out and started playing with her on the rock. At that point, we decided to rush back to the vehicle and try and get our guests into a good spot to actually also enjoy that view with us. So that was probably one of my most exciting or memorable finds, finding a leopard den, which provided the other guides in that area with great sightings for about another week and a half to 2 weeks before she moved them off to another den. Sadly, she's no longer alive, that female leopard. She was called the Raven's Court female, and I've spent a huge amount of time with her and multiple cubs of hers. Interestingly enough, she was killed by a male leopard trying to defend one of her cubs that he was trying to kill. Okay, well, great to have some new viewers, and we look forward to interacting with you guys in the future, so make sure you tune in again. Well done, Tebs on camera. Thanks to Nikki and Kirsty in the final control. And of course, thanks to all of you, all the regulars, all the newcomers, for all your inputs. Over to Jamie.
This camera.
Okay.
And there's also... Well, as I said, I'm not actually deliberately following Scott's sighting around, but we have come upon this incredible Varro's eagle owl, and we thought we'd just give you this close-up view of him, surveying quarantine clearings, ears metaphorically perked. Those tufts, of course, are not ears, but for prey items to catch. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have absolutely loved this afternoon. It has been the most beautiful evening. We've seen some fascinating things, and I've really enjoyed the pleasure of your company. I hope that you have too. A big thank you to VM for his brilliant camera work, as well as to the lovely ladies Nikki and Kirsty in final control, and Eugene for all of his technical genius work. Hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. We'll leave you with this final image of a Varro's eagle owl.